But yeah, if you had dreams of entering into any pro sports, you're gonna have to leave the country and hop on a new visa before you can get on that. So hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and I just moved to the UK. And I know you're probably wondering, how did you do that? Especially because you used to live in Sweden. Well, that is what I'm going to tell you about in this video. So I know in my last video I said I would be making more content that is a little bit more professionally geared and focused and targeted more on people who want to make their transition into the tech space, especially UX design. But I did get some comments about the types of visas and the process of immigrating to the United Kingdom. And because I had that knowledge from my perspective of moving here with my company Spotify, I thought I would make a video just detailing out how a degular person like me or you can move here to the UK. So I am going to just talk a little bit about my process moving over with a sponsored skilled worker visa from Spotify, and also the two other routes that you can take to move here as a single person. So that's why I kind of titled this video The Regular Person's Guide to Coming to the UK, The Regular Person's Guide to Visas. I'm not actually sure what the title's going to be yet, but it's going to be focused on regular people like me and you. So yeah, if you're curious about the process and how I was able to move here to the UK, especially so soon after moving to Sweden to continue my expat life, keep watching and stay tuned. And if you like what you see, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and like this video and leave a comment. I will preface this by saying this is not an expansive list by any means. So I am human. I'm gonna miss things. Please don't come for me in the comments if I say something wrong. I'm gonna try to just read from the research that I've done, as well as the things that I've talked to my friends about who have studied here. But if there are things that I've missed, write it in the comments. Let's share our knowledge and use our community for good. So yeah, please keep watching as I share with you the 3 types of visas that most regular people use to move to the UK. So I'm going to talk about the visas from easiest to most difficult to get. Obviously, those are subjective, but in my opinion, there are 3 main visas that you can get, and I'm going to talk about them from how easy they are to the most difficult / the most amount of work. I'm also going to be talking about the pros and cons of each of these visa types. So the first type of visa that a regular person can use to move over to the UK is the student visa. So that is pretty self-explanatory. You are a student, you're studying in the UK, you are able to get a visa to study here. So usually the process, you work with the school that you're going to be attending. After you get accepted, you work with them, you submit your documentation, and then you will hear back in a promptly manner before the semester starts about your visa status. And then you go and you start school here and you live merrily until you graduate. After you graduate, though, you can file for an extension. So if you file for an extension of your student visa, you get 2 extra years here. And those are 2 years where you can live and work. And the intention is that you will be looking and finding a job here as a postgraduate. And that's 2 years for bachelor's. But if you apply for an extension to your student visa and you have a doctorate or a PhD, you get a 3-year extension. So those are the 2 types of extensions that you can get. And after you get that extension, you can then look for a job. So the important caveat with this visa is after you graduate and let's say you get the extension, within those 2 years, you should find a job that will sponsor you. So sponsorship will then move you from the student visa into the skilled worker visa. So with a student visa, what you can do on it is pretty self-explanatory. You can go to school. You might be able to get a part-time job, but you're there for school and that's it. But once you get your graduate extension on the graduate visa, there are there's a little bit more freedom and flexibility of things you can do. So the pros and cons of this visa and subsequent extension is mainly that you can now work a little bit more freely. You don't have to worry about looking for a job in that 2-year period where you've extended your graduate visa. You can be self-employed as well, and you can also look for a job. So the cons of this visa are, while you're on your student visa, and I think while you're on the extension, those years do not count towards your what they call here is like indefinite leave to remain, which means is your first step before you can get citizenship. So your student years, if you come to school here and you're in school for 4 years on a normal skilled worker visa, those 4 years would count towards your indefinite leave to remain. But as a student, they don't. So you would have to get a job, be on a skilled worker visa, and then your count starts from day one for you to be able to come and become a UK citizen, if that's what you want to do. Some people don't, but if that is what you would like, that's when your count to becoming a UK citizen would begin. So you also don't get to, while you're working here on a student or a graduate visa, you don't get those paychecks, like a portion of your paycheck goes into your pension, which is like a 401k or retirement fund here, but that wouldn't happen. You still pay into the NHS though, but you wouldn't be able to redeem the benefits of a pension like later on down the line. And so those are the two main cons of this visa. But the pros are you can do more work here, you can have a full-time job, or you can be self-employed and become a freelancer, or you can do volunteer work, you can travel freely throughout Europe, you have the right to leave and come back. So that's the first visa, the student visa, and then the subsequent 2-year graduate visa extension from that. One thing I did learn while I was researching about the graduate visa is you cannot work as a professional sports person, which I thought was really weird and random. But yeah, if you had dreams of entering into any pro sports, you're gonna have to leave the country and hop on a new visa before you can get on that. So just a little bit of a fun fact. The next visa is the skilled worker visa. So this is the visa that I have, and this is the visa that many professional expats or immigrants will have. So this is a visa that when you get hired at a job, they sponsor you, they go through the process with you of sponsoring you and making sure that you move over here legally. So the process for me, I can speak to what I did when I was moving over here at Spotify. Spotify hired a firm and a service that helped get all of my requirements in, and they essentially did my packet for me. So I submitted the materials, obviously, but the first step was, filling out the form. I think I had to show proof of academic achievement. So I had to send over like my university and grad school transcripts, and I sent over my resume and a link to my portfolio as well. So just like random things like that. And then after I had all of those sent in, I took a biometrics appointment. So I walked over to somewhere in downtown Stockholm, took my picture and like fingerprints and stuff. And I think they also paid a fee, but that was covered by my company. And I sent all of those documents in, and I waited less than 2 weeks for a decision to be made about whether or not I would receive the visa. I did. Oh, I also sent my passport in the mail with the packet. So I had to give up my passport while the decision was being made. I got it back, obviously, when they told me that I got in. And then my passport also had a page in it that showed my skilled worker visa documentation. And then I later got a card that was proof of that information. But that's what I had to go through to get through to it. So this is, I think, this is more work than a student visa, because you have to actually get a job and you have to make sure that that job wants to sponsor you. And what are the pros and cons of this visa? So the pros are those years that you're here count towards your indefinite leave to remain. So if I were to want to stay here and become a British citizen, I've already put in a year, almost a year now, towards that. And so after my 5 years, I can apply for that and it wouldn't be an issue. Other pro is that the money that I'm making here, my salary is getting paid towards my pension. So if I do want to stay, I am contributing to that. So that's kind of a pro and a con though, because if I don't, it's going to be really hard to like access that money when I do want to retire. So those are like two of the biggest pros. So the biggest con, and I guess the only con with this visa, is it's pretty obvious, but you have to stay at that company. That company is sponsoring you. If you, by some, force lose, your job, you are kind of out of luck. You have a few months to either get a new job at another company that will choose to sponsor you, or you gotta go back home. So you have to be really careful with the type of company you choose, making sure it's really stable. You're kind of at the will of the economy and the economic situation. So if something were to happen to me at Spotify, I would either be having a really stressful time looking for something else, or I would have to go home. And so those years that I was here, I would have to forfeit them. I'm actually not sure, like if I were to go and come back, what that process would be. But if I wanted to come back, I would need another job. So it's kind of stressful in that sense. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse because you have this company. But if I'm looking for another job, just to further my career, I also have to make sure that this company wants to sponsor me so I can move over my sponsorship from Spotify to another company. So that's the biggest hurdle, I would say. The third type of visa, and to me this is the most difficult one, is the global talent visa. So I say that it's the most difficult because there's a lot of work that goes into it up front, and you are independently applying for it. And so you have to put those things together on your own. But after you do it, and if you do end up getting it, it gives you the most freedom and it gives you the most flexibility because you're not tied to a company. You are here as global talent and you are here off the strength of your abilities as a professional. So I don't know if a lot of people know about this visa, but it is something that's worth looking into if you are considered like an expert in your career, but even that's very subjective. But if you just worked hard or you're in a creative industry, you can make the case for being on the global talent visa. So it's a tier 1 visa, and what goes into it is you actually need a lot of requirements. So I was reading this, and eligibility is based off of recognition. So if you've been recognized in publications, awards, you can apply. I think that's the main category for this visa. So the visa is also good for 5 years, which at that point you can apply again for indefinite leave to remain, which brings you one step closer to British citizenship. But these are the things that you'll need in order to apply for the global talent visa: a prestigious award or nomination, 2 detailed reviews of your work by legitimate publishers, proof of international publication and distribution of your work. And then after that, you'll need letters of recommendation. So if you can get plus the application and the application fee, and then you'll send in your passport and they send it back to you if you get it, or if you don't get it as well. But if you can kind of gather all of these things and proof that you have been recognized, you've received awards. I was actually reading through the requirements and I have quite a few of the requirements already, and I'm actually thinking about maybe switching over from the skilled worker to global talent, but it's just a lot of work and you have to chase people down to give you recommendation letters, and I just don't have it in me to kind of do that right now. But if you do, please, please, please look into the global talent visa, because you never know and it can't hurt. What's the worst that they can say? No, and then you just build up your portfolio even more and then apply once again. So if you have, I'm speaking to designers because I'm a designer, but if you applied in grad school to design awards and you've gotten it, if you can get letters from ex-colleagues or people you've worked with before, definitely look into it, because if you're not tied to a company, like, that's a great place to be. Like, if things go downhill with the economy, you don't have to be afraid of what could happen, because with the global talent visa, you can work anywhere and you won't need sponsorship. So it's definitely a big, big, big pro in that regard. The cons for this visa: the only real con is that it just takes a lot of work and you don't have anyone walking you through it. You don't have anyone supporting you like I did, or like most companies will give you if they are supporting you on a skilled worker visa. So you're kind of on your own in that sense. But if you can swing it and you have the time and you have support, or you can outsource that and you can find an agency that you will pay to help you get your package together for application to the skilled worker visa, I would say definitely do it. So there you have it. Those are the 3 types of visas that any regular person can apply for to come to the UK. I know it sounds easier said than done, obviously, but if you're between jobs and you've always wanted a postdoctorate degree, why not come to the UK for your master's? It'll probably be a little bit cheaper. You can get yourself on a student visa, apply for an extension on a graduate visa, take that time to look for a job that can sponsor you in those 2 years, or get your stuff together for the global talent visa and move over from student visa to the talent visa. So there are just different options and combinations you can do. It's definitely not going to be, easy, but you have some options, and I just wanted to help, bring those to light for people who maybe just didn't know or just didn't do the research. So yeah, like I said before, not a comprehensive list. Think of this as like the ultimate SparkNotes version, but use this as a jumping off point to do your own research and understand a little bit more what your options are as someone who wants to move to the UK. Another caveat is, being American and having an American passport, I know that that comes with a lot more privilege than, say, other countries. And so I am coming from that perspective as well. I know that doing a skilled worker visa, it might take way longer for someone coming from another country. So think about that as well before and while you apply. There might be some longer processing times, but yeah, I'm really hoping that you got something out of this video. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anything I might have missed. If there are any questions that you might have, I'll try my best to answer them, but no promises. But yeah, I hope that you found this helpful, and I will see you all in my next video.